Hi, everyone. I see that Lori's with us now. Can you hear me, Lori? Oh. Sorry. Okay, so I'd like to call this meeting to order. And, oh, geez. So just some reminders to the committee members. If you're streaming YouTube in the background, please mute it as it does have a delay. And when passing a motion or voting, can you please visibly raise your hand on the screen? So before we start the meeting today, I'd like to, with recognition of the traditional territories, I would like to acknowledge the 215 children who died at the residential school in Kamloops, BC. We share our condolences and our respect to those children and their families. And I'd like to ask the committee members, counselors, and staff to pause for a moment of reflection now. Thank you, everyone, for that. So today we begin this gathering by acknowledging the land on which we gather in the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish and with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples. Acknowledging this reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of the Indigenous people. So I'm going to ask now, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Cisco and Councillor Littleton, thank you. Okay, so now I need a motion to adopt the minutes of the previous meeting of March 4th, 2021. So I need a mover, if you could raise your hand. Councillor Cisco. Okay. Moving on to declarations of interest. Is there any declarations of interest here today? Okay, seeing none, I'll move on. And there's also no presentations. So we have business arising from the minutes, and that is 8.3, the winter control sidewalk clearing item that was referred to the Budget Standing Committee for a report request. And I'd like to call on Councillor Cisco now to speak to this item.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, we did bring this to the Budget Standing Committee. It's been referred to staff. The expectation is that a report will be coming back in the third quarter of this year. And so we are in a holding pattern while we wait for that. There seemed to be good support around the table at the Budget Standing Committee for this to be considered. And so I'm hopeful when the report comes back, we have a good idea of the costs and are able to move forward with it as a part of the 2022 budget deliberations.
Okay, thank you for that update. Are there any questions or comments in regards to this? I can't see everyone, so maybe if you could give me a shout out if you do have any questions or comments. Okay, so at this time, then I'd pass a motion to accept and update and refer to us. I mean, just to receive this, if I could have a mover for that. Okay, Councillor Cisco, thank you. All in favor? Perfect. So now we go into the business 9.1, and do we have a verbal update from Kelly and Scott? Now you can unmute and share that with us if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll take it. Kelly isn't here today, but there's really no update from the DDRAC. We haven't had a meeting in some time, so the 2020 work plan still remains outstanding.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I guess we just need a motion to accept his verbal report. If I could have a mover for that. Councillor Cisco again. All in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. So now we have a terms of reference update from the Transportation Advisory Committee. Matt and Steve, you can now present your report.
So I'll speak to that. When council adopted the transportation master plan, one of the motions that came out of this was either establish a committee or having a committee to look primarily specifically at the implementation of the master plan, the development and implementation of the active transportation master plan. After some discussion, there was an idea that it's probably best to stay with the Transportation Advisory Committee. So because of that, we're in the process of updating the terms of reference to make specific reference to these 3 items, comment on the implementation of the recommendations outlined in the city's transportation master plan, comment on the development of the city's active transportation master plan, comment on the implementation recommendations outlined in the city's active transportation plan. In addition to that, we're looking at expanding the committee to add representatives from 2 other committees, and that being the Accessibility Advisory Committee and the Recreation Master Plan Advisory Committee. Right now, it's still being reviewed internally, and when that's done, it'll be coming to council.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of the presenter on this item? No. Okay, seeing none. So the motion that you would like to have passed, that the ESC receive and approve the updated terms of reference for the Transportation Advisory Committee, and that the updated terms of reference for the Transportation Advisory Committee be referred to City Council for approval. Do I have a mover for that? Okay, Councillor Cisco. And
Sorry, Chair. Councillor Littleton has raised her hand. I think she's has a question.
oh, I'm sorry, I can't see her. Sorry, Lori.
No, that's totally fine. No, I was trying to make the motion, if it's fine.
Okay, then we could maybe have Councillor Littleton move it and Councillor Cisco second it, since Councillor Cisco's been up there. So all in favor of that? Thank you, that's passed. So 9.3, students on the move. So this is a motion from the Transportation Advisory Committee. And the motion is that students on the move study be presented at City Council with a focus on sidewalk, snow clearing, bike share program, and transit availability. So Matt and Steve, you can now make your presentation.
I can also address this one. So the Transportation Advisory Committee had a presentation from Jackie Gervais and I apologize, the gentleman from Brock.
Chris Fullerton.
Chris Fullerton, comprehensive study about basically how the students traveled. The purpose was to understand the impact transportation, the lack of transportation has on the health and well-being of Niagara's post-secondary students. And ideally, the results and recommendations from the study were used to improve transportation conditions for the health and well-being, improve accessibility and the quality of travel, inform infrastructure needs to support walking, cycling, public transit, and other sustainable transportation options, and implement various regional, local, municipal policies. It was about an hour-long presentation, and the committee, understanding that an hour-long presentation to council is probably not going to happen. They wanted to focus on very specific items, one of them being sidewalk snow clearing, because that came out of this and it kind of dovetails with the other one. It was also presented to the Regional Transportation Committee, which I believe Councillor Porter sits on. So that was the recommendation, that a brief presentation be, there's a brief presentation to City Council with some of the findings of the study.
Okay, so your motion would be to refer it to City Council for a presentation. Okay, are there
That's the motion from the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Okay, so are there any questions or thoughts on this from any of the members of the committee? Councillor Littleton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I have a question to Steve. I guess when we're talking about snow clearing, just if you can highlight on that, is this more of a, community-based, let's get together and let's work at clearing the snow as students, or is this we want more money in the budget to clear snow? I'm just wondering where this is, what the mindset of it is.
Yes.
I'm curious.
So one of the impediments to travel, for pedestrian travel, was snow on the sidewalks, is one of the things that was noted and highlighted when they did their surveys.
I see. So there's no recommendation, because I was just wondering if it was coming from the students, if it was going to be, hey, we're young, we could, help clear snow in our communities. No, it's not.
No,
Okay.
it was an
Okay.
impediment to travel. I wish.
Thanks. Any other questions, Councillor Littleton? You good? Anyone else have any comments or questions? Councillor Cisco?
Just a comment. I went through the presentation. I think it would be a really good conversation, or a really good presentation for council to see and then to hear from. I think sometimes we're a bit removed from the experiences of some segments of the population. And as much as two of our colleagues like to remind us all how much younger they are than the rest of us, they're not university students or college students. And I think the experiences that were sort of outlined in that report would be really helpful when we're coming to make those budget decisions with respect to things like snow clearing or, transit dollars or, active transportation, whatever the case may be. So I think it would be a valuable use of council's time to hear that presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cisco. Steve?
So I guess the motion was a very scoped portion of that. If there's a desire to hear more of the presentation, or if you want to open up this discussion so we can connect certain people with Jackie Gervais and everything, so they're maybe not speaking for an hour. They're willing to do it. So I guess, we try to, the committee try to keep it very specific. But by all means, if you want to hear the whole thing.
Chair, if I could say that we request a 10-minute presentation, a high-level synopsis that focuses on those three things. As much as I know Chris and Jackie and love listening to them speak, I don't think we need to hear them for an hour at council. I don't know how well that would go over.
So moved. Are there any other discussion on this matter? Councillor Littleton?
Thank you. I just see Christine had her hand up for me, so I can wait.
Oh, sorry, I missed you, Christine.
That's fine. Just wondering if there's a bit of a tie I see to the item 9.1 that we just discussed with regards to the sidewalk snow clearing. And since there is a report scheduled to come back from staff in Q3 to the Budget Standing Committee, and we are, as of September, moving into general committee form of Budget Committee, wondering if it might make sense to have this presentation come forward at the same time as 9.1 forward to the general committee. That way they do have a little bit more flexibility with regards to presentation time within that committee, as opposed to council where they are restricted just to 5 minutes. So just a suggestion, and we have our two budget chairs here, so perhaps they can comment.
Okay, Councillor Cisco. Thank you, Christine.
I was just going to say that's actually a great suggestion, given that we are moving into general committee, budget committee in September. Just and my point, really, the only thing I was going to say was to make sure that the presentation is timed so that it has the maximum effect on budget deliberations. But if that's how we're doing it, then that makes sense to me.
So would you still want a 10-minute limit on that presentation then?
I think we would still want to maintain a shorter rather than a longer presentation. But I will remove my restriction to 10 minutes and we will leave it to them. But with, I think just the normal, what are the normal procedural rules? Is there a clerk or deputy clerk in the room? I could say what the normal procedural rules are for presentations.
I think they're limited to 10 minutes.
Okay, so
All
whatever the
presentations. Yeah.
Okay.
whatever the normal procedural rules dictate, because it is general committee.
Okay. So, Councillor Littleton?
Thank you. I was just going to ask, making sure that the presentation is kept to a regular, manageable amount of time is really great. But the onus is always on us to report. So I would just request that perhaps that entire report, whatever documentation it comes with their presentation, so we can read that ahead of time.
Okay, that would be probably very amenable, and it would be a good idea to have that. I'm sure that we could make that happen. So are there any further comments or questions to that? So the motion would be that we're going to refer this back to the Budget Standing General Committee when it meets in September. And we would have a 10-minute time limit on the presentation, and that we are also forwarded the full report to read beforehand. Is that correct? Okay, so can I have a mover for that? Councillor Cisco, sorry, yes, you did move it. Okay, so are we all in favor of that? Okay, perfect, that's carried. So I guess the next order of business is our next meeting, which is Thursday, September 9th at 4:30. And now we can adjourn. So who would like to make that motion? Councillor Littleton. Seconded by Councillor Cisco. Thanks, everyone.